this meeting. We're very strong supporters of no Cold War. And of course, the launch of No Cold War Britain is particularly timely, as our government has this year made its hostile intentions towards China very clear. We've seen massive increases in military spending announced. We've seen the aircraft carrier flotilla going off to the South China Sea. And we've also heard the government outlining Britain's ideological framework for dealing with China. And this very much piggybacks on the US narrative, quotes, to defend democracy against systemic competition, shaping a new open international order. So Britain's key strategic focus now lies in the Indo-Pacific region. It's described as a tilt, and basically it's building a network of regional allies against China. And in this, it very much mirrors the US Quad approach. This breaks with the UK's strategic position, and just 5 years ago, it was promoting closer relationships across the Asia-Pacific, including not only India, but China too. So these new announcements from the government are a shift over the last year or two. And now this week, of course, we've seen NATO taking up very much the same narrative. And I don't suppose if any of us will be surprised about that, but it really clarifies the global situation and makes it clear about the intensification of the hostile focus on China. And as usual, both with British government documents and now with the NATO documents, they pay lip service to the need to cooperate to deal with global challenges like climate change. But NATO ratchets up tensions so much in its statements, it's hard to see how that can actually work out. And the NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg, he actually said, we don't want a Cold War with China, but simultaneously he unveils policies that will pretty much ensure that that takes place. What we saw from the communique that came out of Monday's summit was pretty much the same ideological framework as Biden and Johnson have already unveiled, that quotes, China's stated ambitions and assertive behavior present systemic challenges to the rules-based international order. So they're all saying pretty much the same kind of things. The communique has many accusations and criticisms to make about where China is going. And I'd like to take just a very quick look at what it has to say about China and nuclear weapons, and to consider the double standards in the approach that NATO is taking. So basically, it makes 2 points. It says that China is rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal with more warheads, and it says that China is opaque in implementing its military modernization and has a frequent lack of transparency. So just a couple of very quick comments about this. China has increased its nuclear warheads by around 10% to 350 warheads. Earlier this year, the British government announced a 40% increase in its nuclear warheads. So let me be clear, I oppose any increase in nuclear warheads by any country, and I also oppose the hypocrisy of NATO in this regard. Not only is Britain increasing its nuclear arsenal, but the other NATO nuclear powers, the US and France, are both modernizing their nuclear systems and spending vast amounts of money on them. And in fact, the US and Russia each have in the region of 6,000 nuclear warheads. So when it comes to the question then of China's transparency, which NATO has attacked, the UK also announced this year, when it was announcing the warhead increase, it also said that it will end its own transparency about nuclear weapons. It will no longer publish the figures. So these are the kind of double standards that we're seeing here. And NATO, of course, has also repeated its own commitment to nuclear weapons. They say, we reiterate our commitment to maintaining an appropriate mix of nuclear, conventional and missile defense capabilities. And they say, as long as nuclear weapons exist, NATO will remain a nuclear alliance. So it's fine for NATO to do all those things, presumably. The NATO communique also had a go at China for, quotes, cooperating militarily with Russia, including through participation in Russian exercises in the Euro-Atlantic area. Now, this criticism, I mean, the double standards here are just breathtaking, because in March of this year, one of the largest NATO US Army-led military exercises in decades kicked off, running until this month, with 28,000 troops from 27 nations taking part. And these exercises are known as Defender Europe 2021, and they're taking place across a dozen countries. And the exercises span the Balkans and the Black Sea region, as well as North Africa. So really, that is the reality of what is going on in the world. And I think it's absolutely clear that the real threat to global peace comes from NATO. Without any doubt, it's led by the United States, and it's continuing its expansionism globally. It's already absorbed most of Europe up to the Russian border. It's now active in Africa and Latin America, as well as the Asia Pacific. So that is the reality of the balance of forces in the world militarily. Meanwhile, it continues to attempt to construct China as the enemy, to justify its military advance in the pursuit of its own strategic and economic interests. So, to conclude, let's work together to prevent this destabilizing drive towards war. Thank you very much.